I'm not saying this is necessarily my opinion, but part of me has started to speculate that maybe it would have been better to just not have the quarantine and not have the lockdown, and instead to just let COVID 19 burn itself out. Maybe a couple million people die, but we just get it done and then we try to go back to business as usual. And maybe that sounds very cold and callous, but the longer the lockdown goes on, the more I start to wonder if maybe the cure is worse than the disease. Because we're like only a couple weeks into lockdown. Like in Canada, we're only about a week or two into it, and we already have massive layoffs. I don't even know how long it's going to take to pay for all this stuff. The government's giving out money like lollipops. That's not really a criticism, that's just kind of a fact. I mean, they kind of have to at this point in time. If they're going to shut the economy down, they kind of have to provide people with money to live on. And this is just a week in Canada, and this is just, they haven't even fully shut everything down in the US. And we're already getting predictions like this, that we're going to have 30% unemployment, that GDP is going to fall by like 50%. Like, this isn't the stock market. We have to keep it artificially high forever. This is a third of the country, or I guess not everyone is employed in the American economy. This is a third of all people with jobs, losing them in the span of like a couple weeks, maybe a month or two. And we don't know how long this thing is going to go on for. This thing could go on for a month, 2 months, 6 months. They estimate about 18 months for a vaccine, and we don't know how long. Like, we don't know if it's going to mutate, because it could mutate during this time period. That's certainly a possibility. There could be multiple streams. There could be production problems. We don't even like know how much difficulty they're going to have in making this. So part of me is starting to wonder, maybe we should have just allowed the death camps. By death camps, I just mean like mass like graves and that kind of thing. And I don't know. I don't support that at the moment. I just a speculation. And I think it's something maybe we should just think about. If for no other reason than it's kind of counter to the official narrative. And I think it's important that we entertain alternative ideas even if we don't necessarily hold to them. If for no other reason than the fact that it's just kind of an interesting exercise that keeps the mind nimble. So let's just go through this. So this is from Bloomberg. Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis President James Bullard predicted the U.S. unemployment rate may hit 30% in the second quarter because of shutdowns to combat the coronavirus. Now, keep in mind, the unemployment rate at the height of the Great Depression was, I believe, 25%. Yes, almost exactly 24.9% during the Great Depression. And this is more than that. This is like we're going from what I think was actually one of the lowest unemployment rates the U.S. had in like decades to worse than Great Depression in the span of like a month and a half. I can't even imagine what that's like if the government is running the printing press. And as somebody who saves and invests a lot of money, I'm really scared. I'm scared that like all my saved money is going to become worthless because the government's just engaging in money printing. I don't know if we'll have hyperinflation or just really high inflation or like what's even going on. But there's that, and then we have an unprecedented 50% drop in gross domestic product. 50%. That's half the U.S. economy disappears overnight. Now, to be fair, a lot of GDP per capita is smoke and mirrors. A lot of it is like currency speculation and people moving stuff around and that kind of thing. So I don't know how much you can really count it as economic activity. But still, during the Great Depression, the GDP dropped by, I believe, about 30% or something to that effect. I think it's around 30% it dropped during the Great Depression. So this is much worse in terms of overall economic impact. And once again, this is quarter two. This isn't quarter three or quarter four or quarter one of next year. And even if this thing was going to end tomorrow, how long is it going to take to start climbing out of this hole? Like, we aren't saying anything about the amount of government debt that's going on. Like, whatever. Bullard called for a powerful fiscal response to replace the 2.5 trillion in lost income that quarter to ensure a strong eventual U.S. recovery, adding the Fed would be poised to do more to ensure markets function during a period of high volatility. Like, what more can they reasonably do at this point in time? Everything is on the table for the Fed as far as additional lending programs, Bullard said in a telephone interview Sunday from St. Louis. There is more that we can do if necessary with pre-existing emergency authority. This is probably much more in the months ahead. There's probably much more in the months ahead, depending on what Congress wants us to do. Massive aid. Bullard's grave assessment of the world's largest economy underscores the critical need. Okay, we're just going to go ahead. After cutting interest rates to near zero and pledging to boost its holdings of treasuries by at least $500 billion and of mortgage securities by at least $200 billion. See, I don't know a ton about interest rates. I just know that because interest rates are so low, it kind of makes saving money. It discourages that and encourages like the massive consumer debt. Because I mean, if money is like below, if the interest rate is below the rate of inflation, although granted that real wages haven't grown, but if on paper interest rate is lower than the rate of inflation, then your loan becomes relatively less the longer you hold it, even without making payments on it. Let's see here. This is a planned, organized partial shutdown of the U.S. economy in the second. Let's see here. Let's see. We have $500 billion of money printing, more if needed. This is unlimited and we can go much higher if necessary. We are trying to provide as much support as we can to that market. Commercial paper funding should provide support for corporations trying to roll over short-term debt. So then we have a bunch of stuff for small businesses. Bullard urged that unemployment insurance cover 100% of lost income for workers and call it pandemic insurance. So the U.S. government is going to be paying 100% of a third of America's workers' lost wages for God knows how long. I mean, how can this not cause hyperinflation? The U.S. government, keep in mind, tax revenues are also going to go way, way down. So, and it's not like they can borrow this money from China anymore or other countries. So this is going to be entirely just printed money. This is what happened in like the Weimar Republic when the Great Depression hit there and they just started money printing and they got hyperinflation. So like, I don't know what to do. I imagine by this point in time, gold and silver is a bad idea. Honestly, putting your money in stocks now might be good because they're cheap to buy. And I mean, they're going to go back up. I mean, inflation, I assume the stock market's going to outpace inflation because the companies on the stock market sell products and the products are affected by the rate of inflation. So like if a tube of toothpaste doubles in value, then the stock of Procter & Gamble has to go up, I think. I mean, it's probably better inflation protected than just keeping it in cash. But I'm not a financial advisor, so don't do any of that. But this is insanity. I don't really know what to say. I'm just trying to wonder if maybe the cure is going to be much worse than just letting this thing burn itself out and accepting the consequences of it. So I don't really know. God bless. Stay safe, everybody. We just have to try to get through this crisis.